Campfacer.
What's going on, campers? Campfacer here. Today we have a very special guest from the movie SLAPFACE, writer-director Jeremiah Kipp. I went to school with Jeremiah way back in the day. We used to make homemade horror films with his grandfather and all my friends around town. Jeremiah used to do all the fun little like Stephen King shorts and stuff like that. I lost touch with Jeremiah for over the years. He went to school for film and he proceeded with his career to do film with different companies and crews out there. But he finally got a chance to make his own film, which is SLAPFACE. And today we're going to talk with Jeremiah and ask him a few questions. So make sure to like and subscribe and click notifications to all so you don't miss a video in the future. I also want to do a big shout out to all my camp members for joining the channel and supporting. If you guys want to become a member of the channel, I'm going to put the link down in the description below. I thank you. So, without further ado, please welcome Jeremiah Kipp. What's going on, Jeremiah?
Hey, Brad. It's great to see you.
Yeah, you too, man. It's been a long time.
Yeah. You're one of those guys that when I was making movies in my backyard, you were there.
Yeah, I was about to tell my fans out there that you and I we went to the same school and we lived in the same town, I believe. Charlestown. Wait, we were from Charlestown, or you moved a couple times?
Well, yeah,
right?
we both went to Chariho, and you lived in Charleston, and I lived in Hopkinton.
Yeah, okay. And Jeremiah and your grandfather got you into filming like our homemade films, like horror movie stuff with all the guys like Joe DiMartino and Chris Leggett and Mike DeVoe and all them guys.
Yeah,
I think Hassan DiMartino did it too a few times.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was gonna tell my fans how we were working on like some It film, like small like short films from It. I mean, not It, Stephen King. My bad. Stephen King films.
Which one did we do? I mean, it might have been Salem's Lot that we did together. I can't remember now, but like, I was always making horror films in the backyard with all my friends, and that was something that I did all through high school. I wound up like hanging out with all the skaters and all the metalheads.
I wasn't able to take part in like I think there was which Stephen King film did you do? The Stand. I remember seeing The Stand. It was pretty long, and there was some cool like explosions you put in there and stuff. For starting out, it was fun.
Yeah.
The only one I actually got to work on with you was Mutants. It was called, but we never finished it.
Right. Oh, I guess we didn't. Yeah, like I mean, we made so many that like I mean, I was constantly killing off Joe DiMartino, and I think we had a fight scene with Joe or Chris. I can't remember now. There were so many of them.
But yeah, it was funny just because that's how I got involved with horror movie stuff as well, a little bit. Like watching you and your grandfather, you guys had that big, huge VHS like camcorder. But yeah, it was fun doing that stuff. I'm glad we had a chance to grow up doing that kind of stuff back in the day.
Yeah, me too.
But anyways, moving on, I wanted to ask a few questions about your film SLAPFACE.
Sure.
Which, what inspired you to write and direct this film?
Well, you know, it's interesting that we were talking about my grandfather because one of the things some of the things that happen in SLAPFACE are directly based on things that happened to him in his life. So when he was indeed chased by these 3 girl bullies after school who would throw rocks at him. And then one of them would always circle back around and be like, "You're my secret boyfriend. Don't tell anybody or we'll attack you." And indeed, he and his father played SLAPFACE when he was little because he grew up down in Bowling Lane in a rough part of town.
Okay.
And you know, he would get in trouble and his dad would play this game with him. So like, I kind of wanted to make a movie about where I grew up and make something about my grandfather. I named one of the characters after him. The older brother's name was Tom, which was my grandfather's name.
Okay.
And I also really was inspired by the great book Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. There's a part in the middle of the book where the monster is circling a farmhouse and imagining the lives of the people inside. And I thought, well, what if I took some of Tom's stories, my grandfather, and made the family about him and made the story about him finding a monster.
So it's like based on true events.
Yeah, it was taking true events and then adding the supernatural element to them, which was pretty exciting.
That's awesome. I never knew
Yeah.
that. That's awesome. Um, I couldn't imagine, like, growing up, getting chased by people like that and going
Mm.
through that. Um, so I was gonna say, where was most of this film shot? Was it in Rhode Island? I had a question with my wife when I watched the movie twice, and I'm like, I think some of that was shot in Rhode Island. Correct me
Yeah,
if
I
I'm
mean, it was
wrong.
certainly inspired by Rhode Island. If I could have shot it in Rhode Island, I would have. We shot it in upstate New York, so it still has that New England feeling to it, that kind of Stephen King, you know,
Right.
uh, rural. There was, like upstate New York and Fishkill, New York, felt a lot like where I grew up. So it could have taken place in Rhode Island, but we shot it in upstate New York. Certainly, when I wrote the script, I had Rhode Island in mind.
Right. I knew I heard Bowling Lane in there. I drive by Bowling Lane all the time when we go by past Cheraho up that way. And I'm
Right.
like, oh, look, there's Bowling Lane. And Jeremiah put that into the film. But I'm like, I wonder if some of that was shot in Rhode Island. And it didn't look too familiar, but I wasn't sure. So,
Yeah, I tried
um,
to have a couple of references to Rhode Island that, like, people who I grew up with would know some of the references that
I
I was
think
making.
you mentioned Wakefield. Was that
Wakefield,
Wakefield? Okay.
yeah, so there's a
Yeah.
lot of those, like peppered throughout the movie, where anybody who grew up near where I grew up would kind of know some of those places and some of the characters' names.
Nice. Now, I was wondering. All right, so I lost touch with you through the years after like high school and stuff, and I believe you mentioned you went to school for filming in New York,
I did, yeah. Like
and
right
yeah,
after I got out of high school, I went to New York University. So I moved to New York, and I've lived here ever since.
yeah, because it was funny. I don't know if you remember this moment. I went to visit my brother Brenton when he
Yeah,
was
I ran into
he
him
was he
when I.
was we were living in he was living in New Jersey, and we went to visit him, and he brought us through like Manhattan and stuff, or Times Square. And I
Yeah.
remember, I don't know if you remember this, dude, but we bumped into you in the traffic of people walking. You
No, I
literally
do.
were like face to face, and I was like, Jeremiah? And Brenton was like, oh, hey, Jeremiah. And it was short and sweet, like little like meetup. And then we're like, all right, see you later. And that was
Yeah,
like,
I
I
love
can't
it when
remember,
that
like 20
happens.
years ago or something like that.
Yeah, it was, but I never forgot it. I always think it's very special when I'm walking around New York and then somebody I know who I went to school with in Charahoe uh, runs into me. It's happened a couple of times, like Nikki Barton and Ben Constantino and a couple other people that I knew from high school. I've run into them in the streets of Manhattan, and that's always really great. Like, it's always great to be reminded of where you grew up and of your friends.
Right, right. Now, could you tell like a quick little what you've worked on in the past, like other films or different companies or
Yeah. Well,
experiences in your life that you had a blast doing?
absolutely. Well, the first feature that I directed was a horror film called The Sadist, and that starred Tom Savini, who is a
Nice.
legend of special effects. I mean, he did the special effects for Friday the 13th and Dawn of the Dead and Creepshow. And he's also a really wonderful actor. He acted in From Dusk Till Dawn. He was in the Dawn of the Dead remake. I mean, a bunch of Quentin Tarantino films. So it was basically him killing people in the woods. But I was really excited because Tom Savini was a boyhood hero of mine. So it was really wonderful. Someone who inspired me so much when I was growing up to be making a movie with him was fantastic. And he was really just great to work with. And then I did a few other horror features. One of them was called Black Wake, which was H.P. Lovecraft inspired. H.P. Lovecraft, incidentally, also from Rhode Island. H.P. Lovecraft inspired, giant monster movie with like a monster that erupts out of the sea and people whose heads are exploding, tentacle monsters coming out, all this crazy stuff.
Right.
Is a cuckoo movie. It is totally bonkers. And I got to work with some really cool actors like Tom Sizemore, who was in Saving Private Ryan, and Michael Mann's movie Heat, and Eric Roberts, who was in The Dark Knight, and Vinny Pastore from The Sopranos. So that was a pretty wild ride. That one, my family finally felt like I'd made it because Black Wake was in Best Buys everywhere.
Nice.
Uh, I mean, it was a totally cuckoo bananas movie, but but I'm glad that the movie got out there. And I think that Black Wake was one of the reasons I got hired for Slapface, because Black Wake had made money. It was one of those movies where like it had done really well, like a lot of people had seen it, and it like once you've been had a little financial success as a filmmaker, people will give you another chance. And it was a combination of Black Wake doing really well and Slapface having been done as a short film. Like we're trying to get the feature made, and I made a short film that played festivals for 3 years. And then along the way, the producers had found the short film and read the script and got the financing together, and that's how we made Slapface, which is the most recent feature that I've made. And that, I mean, and work
Right.
begets work. It's like Slapface has been doing really well. That got me my next job, where I'm March 1st, I'm going down to Savannah, Georgia to shoot my next feature, which is another horror movie with a different kind of monster than Slapface, which is super exciting.
I can't wait to check that out when you're ready to
Yeah.
announce. Like, it's a secret right now, right?
Yeah, I'm afraid
Okay.
so. I mean, we will be announcing it. But the thing I'm most excited about is like I'm a New Englander. I'm such a Yankee, so it's really interesting to be like I've gone down south a number of times now for location scouting down in Savannah. It is such a different world than the world that I grew up in, and that's really
Right.
exciting. I mean, the folklore of the South is so much different than the Sleepy Hollow legends and of the North,
Right.
and just the culture and the people are so much different. So I'm really excited. I can't wait to go down to Savannah, and I'll make all the announcements once I can.
Nice. So, Slapface is your first official feature, directing your first
No,
full on
it's the first
film
time as a writer director.
writer
I
director.
directed 5 other features before this that were not based on stuff I'd written. I did some of the writing on Black Wake, but it was with several other writers. But like Slapface is the first time just as a writer director. Uh, which is great. Everything else before that had been a work for hire job where they handed me the script and said, here's
Right.
the movie, go make it, make it to the best of your ability. And with this one, it was a script that I'd written and developed and really wanted to make for a number of years.
Full
And
control, like you got to do your everything you wanted
got to
to
do
do.
exactly what I wanted to do. And I
That's
had
awesome.
producers who were enormously supportive and like there for the movie. So, it's very different. All the other jobs, it's like I didn't have final cut, and I, like basically the producers could do whatever they wanted with it, not always stuff that I would agree with. And on this one, like every step of the way, the producers had my back and had total support. So in that way, it really does feel like the first Jeremiah Kipp movie, because it's the first one that I had total artistic control over.
Nice.
And any notes that I got from the producers were extremely smart and great. Like all the producers' notes made the movie better. So it was one of the best relationships I've ever had with a production.
Awesome. What was it like working with like the cast and crew on this film?
Well, the crew was mostly composed of people that I've been working with for like 10 or 12 years. The director of photography, Dominic Seville, I've been
Hmm.
working with him for a really, really, really long time. So like everybody that was behind the scenes were, aside from the producers and a couple other people, were people I had a long-term working relationship with, which really makes a difference. When you are a well-oiled machine, it just makes everything a lot easier, and you don't have to talk as much. It's really satisfying, and it made it a lot easier working with all my friends, which, as you know, is something I like to do ever since I
Yeah.
was a little kid, is working with my friends. Uh, and these friends I'm working with now just are very, like they're working professionals within the industry that I've become friends with. And the cast were a bunch of people that I did not know. And it was a really great ensemble of people. The main kid, August Maturo, was in a horror film called The Nun, which made our investors very, very happy because The Nun made millions and
Then
millions of dollars.
oh, the nun.
Yeah. He's the
Okay.
kid from The Nun.
I
Yeah.
didn't
And
know that. I'm gonna have to go back and
yeah,
rewatch it now.
yeah, you'll see him. He's in a bunch of scenes with The Nun.
Okay.
And he was also on a TV show called Girl Meets World, that was a Disney show that a lot of kids watched. But August was remarkable. He was the one that we all wanted him to be in the movie, and he was
Yeah.
absolutely
The
spectacular. He was
acting
probably
was great. The acting was great in this, and
what a performance.
I let my wife. I didn't let my wife. I watched it for the second time with my wife, and she's like,
Yeah,
"Wow." because she remembers me talking about you, and she was like, "Oh, I thought it was just some little like film he did." I'm like, she's like, "This
Yeah.
is like, I can't believe it's only on Shutter right now." I'm like, "Well, it's not
Yeah,
only
but
on
I mean,
Shutter.
like, you know,
Shutter's
we'll
awesome.
see what happens in the
Shutter's
future with
big deal."
physical media, like, you know, DVD, Blu-ray, and all that kind of stuff. And we'll see what else happens with the movie after Shutter. But right now, Shutter's great. I mean, I love the
Oh yeah,
program.
no, I
I think
agree. No, I
uh,
wasn't I wasn't saying she was
no, no,
putting it down. She was expecting, like, after watching it, she's like, I'm surprised it's not on every platform right now, because it's like one of those better um films out there that she's seen. You know that
that's
it's
good to hear. Tell your
and
wife I said thank you. I mean, that really means a lot to hear because we put our all into this movie. Yeah, I mean, when I first started out, I was doing, you know, like, as you know, like I was making movies in the backyard, and then like even my first features were very low budget movies. But you know, as time has gone on, the budgets have gone up, and the, you know, the production value has gone up, and as
right,
you were saying, the quality of the actors has gone up.
right.
You know, like the guy who played the sheriff was Dan.
Oh, I lost your audio.
Sorry, I froze
Oh,
up
there
for a
you
second.
go.
Yeah. But
um,
yeah, the Dan Hedaya played the father in Clueless, and he was in The Usual Suspects, and like a million other great movies, Alien Resurrection, and so
nice.
on. So, you know, like these guys, like Dan has done 200 movies, and it was really great to have him in our movie. So yeah, these guys were very seasoned professionals, and like a lot of really just, and they were a joy to work with. Everybody in the cast was like somebody that we went through a casting director. We found all the best people. We hired them, and I couldn't be happier with the group of actors that we assembled.
Okay, so that's all the positives on the film. What were some of the challenges you might have ran into during this film? Like any like uh struggles trying to get people to cooperate, or anything like went wrong on the set? Anything like
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. Well, I mean, there's all the usual challenges of like, you know, I mean, it is, I mean, even though it's a bigger budget than some of the projects that I'd done in the past, it still was, you know, like if we didn't have all the money in the world, you know, so you had to pool your resources. And I would have loved some more shooting days. But like the one that I like to talk about, there was a source of some frustration for me was that for the monster, our special effects department head, we hired that person, wanted to do tests. You know, we wanted to test out the monster. Let's get the actor in there. Let's do tests. And for all sorts of reasons, the FX artist did not want to do it and chose not, you know, didn't do it, which really was frustrating because I didn't want our test to happen on day one of principal photography, which it did. You know, like the first time that anybody saw the monster and the makeup was applied was on day one of our shoot, which is not the right time to do it because you want to solve all of the issues that go into making the monster beforehand. You want to solve them in pre-production so that you can just march the monster onto the set and figure it out. So once I knew we weren't going to do a test, which I was enormously upset by, I talked to the assistant director and we scheduled scenes that could be cut out of the movie on the first day. And indeed, the special effects test involved our entire crew standing around like shooting this monster, and it did not work. You know, like the
Oh
effects
yeah.
were it was, you know, it just didn't look right. Like the quality of the skin was not there. It was like bouncing the light off. The whole thing was a disaster. And I remember standing there with the director of photography. We looked at each other and was like, "Is this how the movie's going to go? Is this going to go
Oh
badly? Are we going to have
no.
a silly looking monster?"
Right.
So we had to sit down with those guys the next day before shooting and say, like, you know, here's a list of all the things that we need changed, you know, by today. Uh, and those two guys, you know, the two guys who implemented the creature were Tony O'Brien and Sandy Washington, who were great. So those were assistants hired by their department head boss, and those were the guys on set with us, and they really stepped up to the occasion. Like once they knew how we wanted to do the monster, then they, you know, suddenly like they crafted it, they bolted it together, they figured it out. So then on day 2 and day 3, the monster got better and better every day, and I was really glad because, you know, it's like it's terrifying. You know, it's like so
Yeah. Right.
not doing a test is terrifying because you're going to have some crazy surprises that you're not going to want. And thankfully, I've told that story a lot, and the producers on my next feature have they contractually obligated the special effects artists to do tests. Indeed, today and tomorrow they're doing 2 days worth of tests, and we're like getting visual references, and they're sending us video and photos. We're going to be on a Zoom and talking through it, like watching the actor perform inside of the makeup and stuff like that, which is what you want, because you want the creature to show up and work on day one, and you don't want the monster to show up on day one of the shoot and have like,
Your
you know,
stress
4
level
hours
must have been going sky high, you
not
know.
going in the movie. Yeah, I mean, you might as well set fire to that footage because none of it is in the movie. That was a really hard lesson, you know, and I will never do that again. Like, I will always contractually obligate the special effects artist to deliver a test so that we know what we're getting into.
Right. Well, it's good that you kind of went through that experience, so now you're like ready for it, and you know in the future and stuff like that.
Yeah,
One of
every
my
time it's
favorite
great.
scenes with the monster was when she's rising in the kitchen, I think it is, inside the house. Oh God, I'm like, every time I see that, I'm like, oh, that's so badass.
We love the monster. You know, every
So
time the monster shows
tall.
up in the movie, we're really excited. Yeah, the actor Lucas Hassel is like 6'5",
Oh
and
wow.
then with the platforms and like everything else, like
Yeah.
the monster got up to 7 feet tall. And it was a great, you know, we loved designing that creature because like the entire idea was like, what if you took a wicked witch's head, but instead of like being on this little old lady's body, we're on this like Frankenstein-sized creature, this giant monster. So it's like Wicked Witch
Yeah.
head on top of like this
And the
long,
score.
big, looming thing.
The score was great too. Even like the sound
Yeah,
effects, like the ambient music and like the rumble, the bass tone, everything about that was awesome. It fit
yeah. I'm glad you
perfect.
picked up on that. Yeah,
Yeah.
Barry Neely was our composer, and that was something that was very important to him, was sustaining the tension throughout by this like low rumbling thing going on underneath all the time. You know, we wanted to make a movie where the audience felt uncertain and ill at ease like the entire time, and creating that atmosphere of dread. The music was a gigantic part of that. Barry Neely did such a brilliant job. I loved working with him.
Nice. Now you mentioned you might be doing, or you're pushing to possibly do a DVD Blu-ray release in the near future.
I hope so. You know, it's because I love physical media.
Physical
And
media,
I know
yeah.
that was part. I mean, that's been part of the conversation. But like, you know, we're not there yet. You know, right now we are on Shudder and we're putting all of our energy into the Shudder release, and then hopefully down the line we'll have some physical media to share with people. I know that like we have like those DVD extras and Blu-ray extras that we can put on the disc that we've talked
Right.
about with our sales agent and distributor and so on.
Now,
So
now do you
all that
know?
stuff is,
Do
all that
you
stuff is being planned, and we'll announce that to you as soon as we can.
nice? Do you know how long, or how long will this film be on Shutter for, or is there a date that it?
I mean, it's going to be on there for a while. You know, it's
Yeah.
like I would have to look at the contract again to see how long the term is. But like, you
Okay.
know, it's like it's not like, oh my God, you have until next month to watch the movie. No,
I
you've
don't.
got time.
I'm not too familiar with Shutter, but I know some platforms it goes for a few months and then it
Yeah, this is longer
disappears.
than that. Yeah,
Yeah.
like Shutter, it'll be on there for a while. So like, if people are
Nice.
like, oh, I can't get to Shutter this week, well, maybe I'll miss it. It's like, no, you have time. You
Yeah.
know, it's like certainly like when you're able to sit down for the 84 minutes and like watch the movie, it will be there. So that it's I would encourage everyone to rush out and see the movie. But if you can't rush out and see the movie, not to worry. You know, if it's like, oh, I won't be able to catch it until next month, will it still be there? It will still be there next
And
month.
if anybody out there can't afford Shutter, there's a 6-day free trial you can do, and you know.
Yeah, they're great about that. You know,
Yeah.
I also hear that it's very easy, you know, like setting up the Shutter account and being on it for the trial is super easy. And then a lot of people who sign up for the 6-day trial realize that Shutter is so awesome that they stay
Yeah.
on it. Like,
Yeah,
it's
because there's
why they do the trial.
right. I didn't realize there's so many different horror films on there compared to like other platforms,
Oh, they
Netflix
have
and stuff.
everything. They've
You
got the
know,
old
a lot of
classics. They've got
80s, a lot of 80s films on there as well, and 70s,
yeah,
and
like Elm
yeah.
Street movies and so on. I mean,
Oh
like
yeah.
they've got it all. They really like the programmers of Shudder love horror movies, and that's really obvious. They've got everything from universal horror films in the 1940s to the like wonderful 1980s movies that you and I grew up with, to contemporary horror movies that
And
are
then they
coming
got
out that like
Slapface.
they steal. Yeah, like SLAPFACE.
Yeah.
Like they saw SLAPFACE along the festival circuit and like saw the great reviews that we were getting, and they loved the movie, and they took it into their fold, which I couldn't be happier about.
Okay, so now there's one question I ask. All my interviews that I do, I have to ask this one question. What was the first horror movie you ever saw growing up as a kid?
Yeah, I do remember
Or
very
close
very
to it.
clearly. No, I remember very clearly. I watched a lot of horror films when I was a kid, but I do remember the first one
Like your
because,
experience of it and everything.
yeah, I
Yes.
remember my experience of it vividly because I was watching John Carpenter's Halloween when I was really little. So I'm like watching it all, and like I managed to get up to the part where Jamie Lee Curtis is in the like she's hiding in the closet, and Michael Myers is like reaching through, and she, is using the coat hanger against him, and like that freaked me out. Like I got so scared that I ran into the other room and covered myself with blankets and didn't see the ending of Halloween. And I didn't see the ending of Halloween until a couple years later when I saw Halloween 2, which opens with the ending of Halloween 1. You see what happened. But that movie scared I mean, when I saw Halloween, it scared the living hell out of me because
Right.
it was so heightened and so intense. And I was, I was a little too young to see that movie. A couple years later, I was able to watch Dawn of the Dead and Texas Chainsaw Massacre and all these other great movies, and
Nice.
I was a little bit more equipped for it. But Halloween, like age 5 or 6, it's like that was a nightmare zone. It's I remember having terrible dreams about Michael Myers, right? For like a week after.
Nice.
Oh,
um,
it's so scary. Yeah, I love that movie, by the way.
yeah. So I think that's about it for this interview. I just want to say thank you so much. Is there any way that do you have social media people could follow you somehow, or anything you want to
Yeah,
promote
I'm all
before?
over social media. Like if people want to follow SlapFace, they can go to Instagram and Twitter. It's called SlapFace Film on both of those. And on Facebook, it's SlapFace Feature Film. They call it SlapFace Feature Film on Facebook because there's also SlapFace Short Film from years ago. If you want to see the history of that movie, you go to SlapFace Short Film. But if you want contemporary updates of what's happening right now, it's SlapFace Feature Film. And then I'm very easy to find on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. There aren't a lot of Jeremiah Kipps, so if you type in my name, you'll find me, friend me, and that's the easy way to follow everything that I'm pretty active
Yeah,
on social media.
I'll put the links in the description below later on
Great.
in the video. So,
That's
yeah.
perfect.
Again, I want to say thank you so much, Jeremiah. It was nice talking with you. Thank you for doing this interview. I appreciate it. Again, Slapface is amazing.
Thanks, Brad.
Probably watch it again in the near future. I just have so many things to. I got to catch up with a lot of my friends are like, Camp, you got to watch this, you got to watch that. I'm like, I will have a whole list of things to get through. Anyways, Jeremiah, thank you so much, and yeah, take care, man.
Thank you, Brad. It was really great seeing you and talking to you, and let's do it again sometime.
All right, man.